So, hello, global people. Welcome, everybody, to our webinar on discovering the value of the GlobeSmart profile as a super smart cultural intelligence and cultural learning platform. I am here today from Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, and I am joined today by my co-conspirator, colleague, and dare I say, really good friend, Brett Parry from Chicago, Illinois. Well, not from Chicago, Illinois. Brett,
Yes,
clear the from line, please.
from, that's right. It's not from. I am located and situated and locked down in Chicago. So, not locked
Lockdown.
down, actually. It's a beautiful day, and I'm looking forward to going to a nice walk around the golf course today. So, not playing golf. I'm just going to go and walk around the golf course. Yeah.
All right. So welcome everybody. We're going to give a few more moments for everybody to get situated and to hop on the call. We have quite a few people registered today, and I anticipate them all being on at some point. Those of you who registered and will not be able to join us for whatever reason, rest assured we have a recording for you, and it is producing right now. And those of you who didn't know this, because we didn't announce it, we are actually streaming live on Facebook for this in order to get a little bit of a broader audience for our message. So today we'll be talking about the GlobeSmart Profile, a cultural profiling cultural assessment tool that both Brett and I use extensively in our work with our clients, and we've been using it in webinars lately as this COVID-19 crisis has inspired us to be a little bit more public about our work and presenting it in a format that we may have not done it the same way before. And GlobeSmart was always an integral part of the webinars that we did on certain national cultures. And there were a lot of questions from people that, hey, this GlobeSmart thing, how does that work? And you've been using this and you've been showing this, and I'd like to know more about this. So we thought, hey, let's take 30 minutes and walk through this. Obviously, 30 minutes are not enough to show you the entirety of what GlobeSmart can do. However, it is hopefully a good glimpse for you to understand what this does and how it is best used. So here are the objectives that we set out for you today. So we want to show you how the GlobeSmart profile can be not only an effective tool, but it's also a statistically validated cultural inventory tool. So this is not just something that people in a research chamber in their ivory towers whipped up. This is something that is actually statistically empirically validated. It will show you the 5 dimensions that GlobeSmart uses to compare culture or to compare culturally determined work styles. We'll show you how you can create your own GlobeSmart profile and how you then can compare that to the GlobeSmart profiles of other cultures, of other countries, and even use it with colleagues and teams. So it becomes personalized at some level. And we also want to show you that the whole learning platform of the GlobeSmart profile is more than only those profiles that you can create and compare. There is a broad and deep learning platform built around it, which lends itself beautifully to any type of cultural learning, or as an add-on, as a beautiful supplement to any cultural training or coaching program that you may do for yourself, that you may do with your clients, or maybe you work in an organization where you're dealing with a multinational, multicultural population, or you have people that are based outside of their native culture, or maybe you will send people outside of their native culture once those travel bans are being lifted. So there are multiple ways you might be able to use this. And why are we doing this, Brett? Because we know that if people don't get culture, culture will bite them in the rear. We want to make sure that people really understand what they're doing as they entered foreign lands. And it's not just that your company has the global footprint, or that you are working in a multinational, international environment. It's not the organizational structure. It's not the business entity that is global. It is your people. It is the people that work in those organizations that want to be prepared, that want to have the cultural intelligence, the emotional intelligence, the IQ actually to do what they need to do. So it's the people, not the organizations. And I think, Brett, I saw you posting something yesterday on social media, which reminded me of this graph. We somehow find ourselves in a land or in a world where expertise may have lost its appeal to some people, that we are oftentimes exposed to self-proclaimed experts who often know very little about the subject matter that they're talking about. And I want to make sure that, yes, GlobeSmart Profile is an intelligent tool. It's a smart tool that we encourage you to use. However, make sure that you use it with the right amount of experience and knowledge. So this is not something that you switch on and off. This is something that needs a little bit of, well, Brett, how would you say it? Experience facilitation, or how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think that facilitation or debrief is a
Mm.
word that we use quite a bit. And just to put some context behind the data and the information that's there, certainly, yes.
All right. So obviously, some of you may have seen a graph or a pie chart of this nature before, or maybe this very one because you've been on a webinar with me before or with Brett before. So there's the things that you do know that are usually in your car as you drive. Imagine you're behind the wheel, you're looking in the rear view mirror. Those are the things you already know. You know that that's in the back of your head. You're not worried about this. Then the things that you see looking outside of your windshield in front of you, those are the things that you know you don't know yet, that you're anticipating those. And maybe as you look in your rear view mirrors or your side mirrors, you may recognize that, oops, there's a truck that I didn't see before. That's that pink or reddish piece of that pie, the things that you didn't even know, you weren't even aware that they're there and you didn't know about them. And the same is true for learning about cultures and the way you close these gaps, right? So GlobeSmart Profile, this is what it would look like if we took a screenshot, which I did, but I want to stop sharing my screen here so that Brett can actually take us to the live version of GlobeSmart. So are you ready, Brett?
I'm absolutely ready.
All
Yes,
right, so
indeed.
I'm stopping the share here and I'm going to give you the reins over this here.
In nautical terms, it's like give you the com, right?
There you
This is
go. Not that I'm a sailor, but yeah, I'm going
it's
to let
great.
somebody.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. I heard it somewhere. I like sailing. So yes, Christian says, you know, this is a great tool that we use in our work with our clients, and they can use it themselves. But oftentimes, it is great to have somebody debrief it and dig into the weeds, to use another saying. Uh, of course, the platform itself, I just wanted to say, has actually just been really rebuilt and revitalized to what it used to be, and it's really just taken it to a whole nother level. You can see when you register for this assessment, you do so with just a simple email address and password access, and then you're presented with a dashboard. And so this is kind of the modern way that things are presented now in today's world, and it makes it easy to navigate. And while what you might see in your particular view might not look like what I see here, because we have practitioner access to it, what you will be able to do immediately is you will be prompted to do a survey of 40 questions, which will help this tool determine your preferred working style. And essentially at the end of it, you will get something that looks like this. This is actually my profile, and of course it doesn't matter a tick to anybody else what my profile is right now, but this is just an example. And as Christian mentioned before, there are 5 dimensions, and those dimensions are independent versus interdependent, egalitarianism versus status, risk and certainty, direct and indirect when it comes to communication, and task and relationship. We probably won't get time to, I mean, these are pretty self-explanatory for most people, but of course we do like to just do some definition framing when we're doing debriefs, just to understand what these profiles actually these dimensions are. But it's also very important to understand that this is not while it is a left and right tool, it's not a right or wrong tool. This is just a continuum, and it will measure this. In this case, this has measured me in response to my answers to the survey questions. So you can see that I'm somewhere towards the middle of being independent and interdependent. I have a kind of a lower degree of status orientation than some. I, for some reason, have a high degree of risk. I'm not a mountain climber. I don't go rock climbing and all that kind of stuff. But in other aspects, I know why that is. I am somewhat an indirect communicator, and I am very much a relationship-based person. Now, of course, this is great. This is what we always do in our work, as we talk about the importance of understanding your preferred style before you can even think about how you're going to respond and how effective you're going to work with people from other cultures. So this is at its very core. For the absolute free version of this, you're going to be able to have access to look at this. And what we do in our work, of course, is that when we put this up in front of people after they've done their survey, it is quite often the case where some people will be surprised by their results. Of course, in the debrief, it's important for us, and there are always reasons why that might be, but we do it in the debrief and give them some framework as to why that might come out differently to what they thought they would. The power of this tool, of course, then expands into the opportunities to do certain things. Now, of course, I'm Australian. I can type in Australia here and compare myself to my own native culture as well. Now, you can see here, this is one example where I'm in many aspects completely different to my national culture. Christian said, importantly, this is a very highly validated tool. Part of that validation comes with the multitude of people that have taken this survey, backed by research and data, and also the experts' opinions of people that have helped frame this tool. So it's a mixture, but everybody is an individual, and that's why it's always important to be able to do your own profile, because obviously a lot of countries are regional in their styles. We're in the US here, we identify about 11 subcultures in this country. So the people that come from different areas do display different tendencies, and some of that is actually influenced by culture themselves, where perhaps the origin of the people that settled that area may come from. So that on its surface, again, is another level where you can say, it's interesting, I'm not the same as my country people, and that's perfectly okay. We can go back and then
Brett, let me ask
to
you,
another.
do you have my profile available on your end? Can you throw in mine as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that's the power of it, because I do have my good friend Christian here, and of course the power in this comes with the ability to be able to share this with a colleague that perhaps works, even if they don't, if they're not from another country. You can actually get the difference that you may have, the contrast that you may have with your colleague. And in this particular case, obviously, Christian and I are different and similar in certain ways. But what does that mean? Of course, this is on its surface, this is just lines on a graph. The power of this tool, of course, is to be able to scroll down, and this gives me dynamically created tips based on some of the contrasts that this tool sees between myself and my good friend Christian. So if we were going to work together, and we do a lot, and there are certain things that I probably need to remember that I need to do, or try to style change a little in my interactions when I'm working with Christian, just to make that a more productive and seamless process. So in this particular case, it's looking at here where we've got a certain, I think our risk and certainty profiles are the biggest profile dimension or contrast. So what this is telling me is that when I'm working with Christian, I need to listen well, demonstrate an interest in learning about the local situation that he's in. And if I move ahead too quickly, like I might have a tendency to do on for my high risk profile, then perhaps that would put Christian in a place where he might think, no, we're moving too fast. And maybe that, now, is this, and I will ask you, Christian, I will listen, as you say, what about your profile in this, in this particular profile dimension of certainty and risk? Does this ring true for you particularly? He's on mute.
I need to unmute myself. That would help a lot.
No worries.
That profile does resonate with me. Obviously, I was startled at first a little bit as well when I first saw my my graph, because it does not overlap exactly with the Germany graph, and you might as well include the graph for Germany and Australia for the two of us. There are certain aspects or certain dimensions on the GlobeSmart profile where I am certainly in line with Germany, and then there are others where I'm not, as you will see here in a second. So the green line is Germany, the yellow line is me. So it runs parallel, as you see. However, I'm a bit removed to the right side of the Germany graph, which means I am not as individualistically minded as the quote unquote average German. I adhere to hierarchies or status or power dynamics in a more probably conservative way than most Germans do nowadays. And I'm also not a huge fan of risk. I'm a rather risk. I wouldn't describe myself as risk averse. I would describe myself as risk cautious, right? So I will flip the coin 17 times before I am okay picking it up. And I'm not necessarily an early adopter. And you see that I have learned over time to not be as direct as most of my fellow country people seem to be, according to GlobeSmart. However, if you compare me to Brett's profile, I'm still a very direct communicator, and that is something that hasn't always served me well in cultures where communication styles tend to be a lot more high context than my low context preference. So I think it's a powerful instrument to compare this. Oh yeah, Japan. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Look at this.
This takes this is the other part of it is that you can do there are over 96 or almost 100 countries in this inventory. That will give you that validated average of how those people might work in that culture. And so you can understand if Christian was going to Japan, then that, yes, I mean, maybe his directness probably has some impact on his interactions with people in the US, but of course it would even have more of an impact with people in Japan. And Christian, being a very culturally competent person, would understand that. But the average person who just kind of goes and starts to do business in a place like Japan, with that profile, may find that the response from their counterparts might be one of that they think that that person is being aggressive or being very forthright and perhaps a little too honest when it comes to even when it comes to their profile. So this is where it's very important, of course, to do the debrief. We keep reminding people of that, but the power in this tool is that you can really dig deep into some different cultural profiles.
Brett, before you dig in deep, Brett, there is one request from the attendees to include the profile for Ghana.
Okay. Right.
Fauzia Ibrahim, I hope I'm saying the name properly. Fauzia Ibrahim, who is apparently based in Ghana, would love to see that on display. There we go. You are command, Fauzia.
And what we know of course, a lot of countries in that region is that they do match a general profile. The people there are much more interdependent. There is a status, there's a hierarchy. Often you'll find hierarchies in organizations, and this influences how you interact with people from different levels in the organization. and a little bit more certainty, of course, not unlike the German certainty,
Mm-hmm.
or Christian certainty. Indirect, and indirect doesn't mean dishonest. It just means that the tendency to perhaps talk around the issues a little bit more rather than go straight to the core.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, high relationship tendency. And of course, we find this in, if you look at anthropological type of studies that talk about the origins of some of the people here in the US, from African cultures, that, and Christian is in an area where Atlanta, where there's a lot of friendliness. It's known for its friendliness, the South, right? And so the people there have this really wonderful relationship tendency, to be wonderfully friendly, right? Might not exist when you go to somewhere up north. People are friendly, but they take a little bit more time to warm up. So,
Right. Right.
um,
Now,
yeah.
as you go into the more detailed debrief of these 5 dimensions, I would invite everybody else who's on here, all the attendees, to, if you have questions or comments around this, feel free to put that in the chat box. Due to the number of attendees and the time that we assign for this, I'm not going to open the mics for you because that'll create a little bit of a confusion here. So if you have a question or a comment, feel free to put it in the chat box. Wilhelmina Brown says, hello, is it possible to see country cultural profiles without the comparison to someone's profile? Yes, you can. So
Yes.
as you see here, Brett is demonstrating it. He's removing his own personal profile, and he can now add different country profiles or other people's profiles that have opted to give him access to it. So as you become a facilitator or a fully fledged owner of a GlobeSmart license, you obviously can use this with your teams, and you have you can tell the people that you assign a GlobeSmart account to opt in to share their profile, make their profile public with yours. So as a trainer, a facilitator, myself and Brett does that too, we can pull in other people's profiles or choose not to pull them in and just compare the country profiles. So there's a high level of versatility you can use. As we do this with our training clients or coaching clients, we ask them, hey, complete the questionnaire, create your profile, and make it shareable with me. And then we can demonstrate during a training and during coaching sessions how that plays out in comparison to other nation cultures. So yes, Wilhelmina, I hope that answers your questions. And then I see another question pop up in the Q&A box. Yetunde Mishola asks, is there more information about the validity? This would gain the buy-in from colleagues to use the tool. Good question, Yetunde. So Brett, can you speak to that?
Well, probably in the shortness of time we have here, no. But perhaps we may be able to include that if we follow up with people in emails. We can include that, and we can include the link to the description of how it's validated, and that. But that's often that's always a good question,
Well, let's
especially people who like information and data.
yes, let's make it a note. So you'll all get a follow-up email with actually a gift that we have for you. And we didn't announce this, and we didn't want you to be on this webinar because there's a gift. We wanted to surprise you with something. Actually, the owners, the developers of GlobeSmart have authorized Brett and myself to give you 2 weeks of free access to the platform, and not just to the free version that is available on the web as is. No, we're giving you 2 weeks of all access, so you can actually use this tool and kick the tires as much as you want on it for 2 weeks, as our thank you to you for spending time with us today. So we will be sending out a follow-up email that will contain your personalized coupon to redeem the 2 weeks of full access. And we will also, and I'm taking note here, we will also include a link that will give you more detail on the empiric validity of the instrument. All right?
Perfect.
So Brett, feel free
And
to take us into the depth of the debrief, or the depth of the platform.
Another aspect of the platform is that with the profiles that give you obviously a lot of that validated information about or tips and tricks about how you might interact with people from particular other cultures, there is also these wonderful culture guides, GlobeSmart culture guides. That in this term, let's pick a country here. Let's pick China, and this will take us into again, one of those almost 100 countries that are in this profile. This brings us to a page which has a number of topics that you can dig into. And I hesitate to use this term going down rabbit holes, but that's exactly what it is. It's such a fascinating tool to be able to search and look up different aspects about this culture how you can.
It's a honey badger hole. Let's call it a honey badger hole.
Okay. So I did mention this to a client from India once. I said, it's like going down rabbit holes, and he stopped me in my tracks and he said, now, what does that mean? Because my boss said that to me the other day, and I kind of didn't want to say to him that I didn't understand, but I didn't really understand what he was talking about, because must be a very English saying, is it? I said, well, yeah. So we often forget where we are, even us who do culture, forget where we are and tend to throw these type of terms around. But in this particular case, one part of him, in terms of China, and I've been to China before and done business there, one of the places where communication is important, like it's everywhere, is China. And so this gives you some, of course, high-level tips, and then you can start to, again, go down the pathway to really dig into a deeper aspect of this culture and what's effective or what drives the culture, what influences the culture as far as its working style and social interaction style. And so for assignees or people that are doing business in these countries, this is a great tool to just have in your pocket. I can tell you the latest this version, of course, is obviously wonderful even on a cell phone, because it renders out. I don't know I'm not a tech guy, but you know how it renders out on page. So this is kind of like your pocket, your friendly cultural guide in your pocket. So you can just refer to it and not be so surprised when you get to the country that you're interacting with or that you're traveling to, not be kind of caught unawares.
Right.
Give you a little bit of a heads up. Yeah.
Thank you for this, Brett. This is, I have to admit, I've been down these paths to more knowledge myself, and I think it was a very productive time suck. So you want to be mindful how you use this, because if you're anything like us, then and you're eager to learn about other cultures or close some of the knowledge holes that you think you have, or find new knowledge holes that you were not even aware of, remember that pie chart. This will be a lovely instrument. Now we have a question. I think that's a good question coming from, I'm assuming from Europe, Jacqueline van Haften. Well, the name looks Dutch or Flemish. She asked, when you looked for your profile, we could see a lot of names. How do you deal with GDPR? So how is the GlobeSmart profile keeping personal data safe, Brett?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very important. And of course, we have the Pairing Global who built this have to be GDPR compliant. You cannot share, you cannot gather the profile of another person until they give you explicit permission to do so.
Exactly.
So that's why I think Christian mentioned before, is that if you invite people to share the profile with you, it's up to them whether they want to or not.
Right.
What we find is a lot of the very senior leaders we work with that are going to places find this as a tool to say, well, great, I can take this, my new team that I'm going to be working with, this is a great icebreaker. But of course, I do tell them, then, really it's up to them to share with you. This is a private tool. And this, of course, it's pretty high level. It's only 5 dimensions on its surface. So it is usually not too intrusive, but it is a good insight into if you just frame it in the terms of saying, this is just to make us understand that there is no right or wrong between your style and my style. Right. We're just different. Yeah.
I think the short answer for Jacqueline is yes, the data is safe the data is safe, period. And the personal data only becomes shareable if people give their explicit consent. So I just want to make sure that we are at the 30-minute mark, and I want to be mindful of your times. If you need to jump off, do so. Brett and I are going to be here for a couple of more minutes to answer questions. Yes, you're welcome, Jacqueline. And I do want to address the only 5 dimensions aspect of it. Yes, there is beauty in the simplicity of GlobeSmart. However, there is much more depth to these 5 dimensions as you use it in more detail. And we've done this, Brett and I, we've done this with our clients quite a bit, because these 5 dimensions, each one of them has nuances that are broken out into detail as we go down the path, or as we follow the path of more detail or more information, to avoid the animal metaphors here. So, for instance, with direct or indirect communication, there are different aspects to how people communicate directly or indirectly. How we are independent or interdependent can have some nuance. How we perceive hierarchies or egalitarianism can have some nuance, right? So I can be direct in my communicative approach and also be confrontational, or I can be direct and avoid confrontation. So there are sub aspects that intersect with these 5 dimensions that GlobeSmart will allow you, if you work with an experienced facilitator, will allow you to break down and analyze in much more depth. So this can be on the surface a quick and easy, only 5 dimensions instrument. However, it can be much, much more. And you can spend days in training rooms with your clients to actually use it and apply it to their situation.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll use that dimension you mentioned about the direct and indirect. A lot of people say Australians are direct, and we certainly are, but we bring in an aspect of low context and high context.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I use a lot of humor and sarcasm. Now, I tend not to try and do that too much here in the US, because Americans are usually direct and low context. It's just, I'm talking to you in English. Now, I certainly speak English, but when there's a bit of tension in the air, when there's maybe some conflict, I will tend to kind of, because of my relationship profile, I will tend to lower that tension by throwing out a bit of a joke, a bit of sarcasm. And that's a context that, if not understood by an American, they might take it as Brett just doesn't take anything seriously enough. And yet I do take it seriously. I'm just bringing my particular working style into it. And that's the context, the high context part. So as Christian said, it's very important that there are deeper dimensions underneath this, with an experienced facilitator can be debriefed in a very effective way to make people understand how these contrasts, you're either bridging gaps or you're leveraging similarities. Yeah.
Now, if there are any more questions or comments, feel free to post them in the chat box or in the Q&A window. Either way, I think I can see it. Yeah, Wilhelmina asks how to become a licensed facilitator trainer with GlobeSmart. According to the information on the website, there are different certifications for each program separately, ? Brett, I think there's a simple answer to this. How do you become a licensed facilitator with GlobeSmart?
Yeah, there is a facilitator certification for GlobeSmart, which you can sign up for. And again, we can send that information as well. But that's with a Perrin Global. That's not part of our
Right.
operation. But it is possible to become a license of it. Not it's a license. It's kind of a certified facilitator, and to be able to do that.
So to become a licensed facilitator, this might be attractive to people who run learning and development departments in larger organizations, or if you are a cultural trainer or coach yourself, then this might be something that you want to do. We've seen a lot of cases where L&D departments wanted to have at least 1 or 2 people in-house to be certified so that they could either conduct their own trainings or have somebody who is experienced in-house do it jointly with external trainers like Brett and myself. So we've seen a lot of that. However, in order to use GlobeSmart, you don't necessarily have to be a licensed facilitator. It is often advised, I think, as you have clients that would apply for a cultural coaching or training program to pair them up with a Brett or a Christian or somebody else who is GlobeSmart certified to help them work through the data and to help them interpret the data properly.
Yeah. And then I am, you will see also on the left-hand side here, there's learning module and assessments, because we have access to this as practitioners, but that's kind of another aspect of the tool that kind of goes in the background, where there are a lot of self-directed trainings that people can go through. So a lot of L&D departments love this aspect, because they can just give it to their employees, and they can go through things like diversity and inclusion. And in this particular case, one of the things that comes up most prominently is to be able to run virtual meetings effectively, especially in an inclusive way. So you will find that actually is something that's available now. I think you can download a quick guide. This would be part of your access as well. But yeah, so there's many aspects to it, and I encourage you to explore it for sure.
Right. And if Brett, if you're done sharing your screen, then let me pop up mine real quick so people know how to actually inquire with us should there be more follow-up questions around this. So there is a fairly easy way you can get in touch with Brett or myself. You see our phone numbers here. You see our websites, emails, our socials, at least part of our socials. So it would be easy for you to get in touch with one of us, and we might be able to lead you into new rabbit, badger, and other holes, maybe even into anthills, because there's a lot of channels that go up and down. So I think
you notice there's a dimension aspect in this picture, right? You've got the laid back Aussie here with his polo shirt, and the very formal and very good looking German on the right hand side.
Well, good looking, I don't know, but the form, yeah, this is actually the picture that I use for most of my professional social media, because as you can tell, I don't always look like this. And since we're working from home, there's a denim shirt on me and actually a t-shirt underneath. So I'm super casual. It's almost uncomfortable. But yes, that image just tells you that I got to keep up appearances. That's the German side in me, right? So yeah. Thanks, Brett, for making yourself available to share some depth and insight to GlobeSmart. Thank you all for being on. As I said, there'll be a follow-up email to all of you who registered and either made it or not. And those of you who are watching this on Facebook, yeah, feel free to contact us, and we'll make sure you're registered next time, and you don't miss any of our webinars in the future. Thank you for. Hang on, we have one more question, so I want to make sure that we get all the questions in.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Thanks,
excellent,
everybody.
Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. And if you are somewhere in the world where you observe Ramadan, I hope you have a beautiful breaking of the fast tonight. And with that, I think I'm out. What about you, Brett?
I am done.
Thank you very much.